Good morning and welcome to the Batteries and Buses Clean School Bus Rebate Program webinar, co-hosted by the Electrification Coalition and EPA's Region 3 Clean School Bus team. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Ann Blair. I'm Vice President of Policy at the Electrification Coalition. Today, we will hear from a set of amazing speakers who will discuss the Clean School Bus Rebate Program and the many people and factors that go into a successful rollout of electric school buses in our school districts. Before we get too far on our agenda, I want to introduce the Electrification Coalition to you for those who may not be familiar. To start off, the Electrification Coalition is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that develops and implements a broad set of strategies to facilitate the widespread adoption of electric vehicles to overcome the economic, public health, and national security challenges that stem from America's dependence on oil. We also have a sibling organization, SAFE, that's based in Washington, D.C. as well, that develops and advocates for policies that curtail our dependence on oil and promotes responsible use of our domestic energy resources, largely focusing on the upstream supply chain side of the electrification transition. Here at the Electrification Coalition, we are trying to mitigate the critical issue of the United States' dependence on oil. With 90% of America's transportation sector reliant on oil, whether it be passenger vehicles, freight, and trucking, or school buses transporting our students, this dependence causes a multitude of negative impacts. In our view, opting for the electrification of mobility offers a more dependable, cost-effective, secure, and environmentally friendly domestic energy solution. We believe this is the direction we should focus our time and resources to reshape the transportation sector for the better. As you can see here, the EC is actively engaged in collaborating with more than 12 key states, numerous cities, smaller government entities to support their electrification goals. Thanks to our geographically spread out team, we're able to present both virtually and in person to the majority of the United States. To aid in the electrification efforts nationwide, we developed tools and resources, including our EV Funding Finder. The EV Funding Finder is helpful whether you're a city, nonprofit, small business, or individual. This tool is designed to assist you in navigating the diverse funding options available to successfully electrify your vehicles. Additionally, we recognize the important next step of charging availability in the workplace. So we'd like to share that we have started a new program called EVAL, also called the Electric Vehicle Adoption Leadership Certification Program. This is operated by Forth, one of our partner organizations, with assistance from the EC, EV Noor, and Plug-in America. This Department of Energy funded program allows any workplace, whether it's a school or small business, to increase the national workplace charging network. It's free of charge if you apply in the first year and will show your workplace as a leader in sustainable employee transportation and even increase property values. Please don't hesitate to reach out to others on our team, specifically Emily and Torin, with any questions. We'll place their emails in the chat for your use. So here at the EC, we also want to be a hub of knowledge and resources for you. So please follow this QR code or visit electrificationcoalition.org/resource to see many of our fact books and reports, such as the 2023 Clean School Bus Rebate Program Top 10 Takeaways. So from here, I'd like to start off highlighting the importance of electric school buses by showing a brief video with some of the key perspectives from an early adopter that we worked with. We would like to note that the program they participated in was not funded directly through this program, so please disregard any specific programmatic details there. But we'd like to kick it off with this video, so let's get started.
There goes one. That's the noise you hear when they go slow. That's an electric bus.
The electric buses are great. They are so much cleaner for the kids, for their breathing. The diesel, they smell more. The electric is clean. They love riding on it. I love going to work in the morning. I love being able to get on my bus and do what I do. It's a great bus to have.
Zeeland Public Schools is very proud of the fact that we went forward with an opportunity that was unique and innovative. We have these buses now, the electric ones, in our fleet, amongst other buses. Our drivers have taken on the opportunity, and they've really been trailblazers with the experience. And our Director of Transportation is proud to continue the legacy that our former Transportation Director started with this project. And we just hope to be able to support others that might be looking at those.
Electric buses are the future, but they're now. They're clean running. Your drivers are going to like them. Why not be part of the future and make it now? But then the other thing of it is we're transporting America's most precious cargo. And clean air, can you put a price tag on clean air for kids whose lungs are developing? You're dealing with from kindergarten through 12th grade, and we know that their bodies are developing, their lungs are developing, their brains are developing, and the cleaner air they have, the better it is for them.
We have our 4 electric buses, and we have 4 different routes that they are on. 2 of those routes are longer routes. They go more out into the country, and they put on more miles per day than the other 2. And the other 2 we keep in town, and they handle some of our town routes. The more we read about electric school buses and the more that the technology advances, we realize that the range is just getting better and better every year.
If we take our foot off the accelerator a little earlier than what we normally would have, we can use that braking system to put a charge back into our bus. I've never had an issue with the charging in the cold.
So here we are in an electric bus. Starting this vehicle is similar to starting any other bus. We just simply come over here, we turn the key, we let it cycle through, and then we click start. And our display here will tell me that it is ready to go. Pretty quiet, but we are ready to start driving down the road. If I want to coast up to a stop sign, I just take my foot off the accelerator, and that dial goes into the positive side, which we're actually gaining energy at that point. So we're actually regenerating electricity back into the batteries of the bus. We are excited about the future of electric vehicles, both for the environmental impact that they have, the cost savings on fuel, and the experience that our schools and our students receive by riding on these vehicles. So one of the perks of driving this bus is that our drivers never have to put fuel in the fuel tank. They simply have to plug them in at the end of their routes, and then when they come back for their next route, that bus is charged and ready to go. All right, at the end of the day, all we do is open that up here, take our charger, plug it in, and then at the top we see these lights flashing, so then we know that thing is charging and it will be ready to go for us again in a couple hours.
Talking about the cost in terms of the savings over the life of the purchase really made sense when we think about 17 cents per mile compared to about 40 to 43 cents per mile for a regular standard operating bus. It does make sense, but we needed those supplemental funds to get us through the initial purchase.
And we put the process together and wrote the grant. So it's sent to Eagle and put into the award for 70% of the cost of the buses. So each of the districts had to pay close to just over $100,000 to be in the game per bus. Put that amount in, so that was a commitment from them, and then Eagle covered the other 70%.
This actual grant opportunity was a similar opportunity where we could write not just for Zeeland Public, but for other schools that had interest in the opportunity. So I'd say if there's opportunities for us to do that again, we certainly would, and we could give them, input from our own experience. But just to consider the impact on the environment, the shelf life of these, the quiet operation, there's a number of great reasons why this might be something to look at.
The manufacturers have been very responsive to us in trying to work on this project together and trying to partner with us on these things. When you read about electric vehicles and you read about electric buses and even electric semi-trucks, you think that's far away. And so for our drivers and for our department and for our teachers and for our students here, we get to read about that and see how the country is kind of shifting in that direction, and we get to say, yeah, we're already doing that.
That inspiring video. Now we are going to go ahead and get started with the rest of the conversation today. So I'm going to pass it now to Max Turner, our moderator for today. Max is on the EC team, and so I'll pass it to him for further intros. Max.
Thank you, Anne, for the wonderful introduction. As she said, my name is Max Turner. I'm a campaigns organizer here at the Electrification Coalition. As stated in the video, replacing diesel buses with clean electric school buses improves air quality for students, saves school districts money, improves the resilience of our electrical grid, and reduces carbon emissions that drive climate change. The opportunities for clean school bus fleet managers to replace conventional high-polluting diesel vehicles with clean electric models are rapidly increasing. Federal funding for school bus electrification, like the program we're here today to discuss, is greater than ever. There is a growing awareness in communities of the urgent need to reduce vehicle emissions, and manufacturers are offering an increasing variety of electric models. The time to electrify our nation's school bus fleet is now. Here to give us an overview of the Clean School Bus Rebate Program is Sydney Stern from the Air and Radiation Division at the US EPA Mid-Atlantic Regional Office and Clean School Bus team. Thank you, Sydney. I'll turn it over to you from here.
Thanks, Max. So while we wait for my slides to come up, like Max said, my name is Sydney Stern and I work at EPA in Region 3 and I'm the Clean School Bus lead. So really quickly, I'm not going to read this word for word, but a quick ethics disclaimer. This presentation aims to provide information related to the Clean School Bus program. EPA does not endorse any specific companies, products, or organizations. Mention to or referral of commercial products or services or links to non-EPA sites does not imply official EPA endorsement. So really quickly, an overview of the Clean School Bus program. Under Title 11, Clean School Buses and Ferries, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or bill, provides $5 billion over 5 years for the replacement of existing school buses with zero emission and clean school buses. EPA has offered rebates and grants in past funding opportunities. EPA is offering another round of rebate funding. And this 2023 rebates is the third CSB funding opportunity. So why clean school buses? There's a variety of reasons, some of which are reduced greenhouse gas emissions, cleaner air, like clean school buses result in cleaner air on the bus, in bus loading areas, and in the communities in which they operate. There's cost savings and resiliency components, such as vehicle-to-grid capability. Clean school buses can provide power to the grid or buildings during power shutdowns. There's also studies showing improved student attendance and achievement. So EPA has offered both grants and rebates in the past, and to reiterate, this is a Clean School Bus Rebate program. So for rebates, it is the quickest timeline for fleets to receive funding. There's a lower bus minimum and maximum requirement in the application, so it's great for first-time adopters and smaller fleets. Application process and selection and funding process is much more simple and straightforward. So for the 2023 rebate program, we want to do a quick overview. Again, EPA is offering at least $500 million for clean school buses and zero emission school buses. Eligible activities include the replacement of existing internal combustion engine school buses with electric, propane, or compressed natural gas school buses, as well as the purchase and installation of electric vehicle supply equipment infrastructure. EPA is prioritizing applications that will replace buses serving high-need local education agencies, tribal school districts funded by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or those receiving basic support payments for students living on tribal land and rural areas. EPA is committed to ensuring the CSB program delivers on the Justice 40 initiative. So who can apply? Eligible applicants include state and local governmental entities responsible for providing bus service to one or more public school systems, or the purchase, lease, license, or contract of school bus service, public charter school districts responsible for the purchase, lease, license, or contract of school bus service, and Indian tribes, tribal organizations, or tribally controlled schools also responsible for providing the school bus service. Additionally, nonprofit school transportation associations, eligible contractors like OEMs, dealers, and private school bus fleets are also eligible. So we encourage you to read the 2023 rebate program guide for the prioritization criteria, but the 4 main criteria we want to highlight are high-need school districts in low-income areas, rural school districts, Bureau of Indian Affairs funded school districts, and school districts that receive basic support payments for children who reside on Indian land. We also wanted to talk about the CSB funding per replacement bus. School district prioritization status can be seen on the left. It's buses serving school districts that meet 1 or more of that prioritization criteria. They can receive up to $345,000 for bus and charging infrastructure for a zero-emission Class 7 bus. Buses serving school districts that are not prioritized can receive up to $200,000 for bus and charging infrastructure for a zero-emission Class 7 bus. And throughout the rest of the table, you can see the funding amounts for zero-emission Class 3 to 6, as well as compressed natural gas and propane options. So the eligible existing school buses that you're replacing must be vehicle model year 2010 or older diesel-powered school buses that will be scrapped if selected for funding, have a gross vehicle weight rating of 10,001 pounds or more, be fully operational at the time of application submission, and have provided bus service for at least 3 days a week on average during the 2022-2023 school year. And we encourage you to refer to the program guide for all the eligibility information. We also want to highlight the infrastructure funding restrictions. So EPA cannot fund anything in front of the meter, such as transformers or parts of the utility distribution network. Eligible expenses with the infrastructure funding include anything behind the meter, like electrical panels, battery storage systems, and charging stations. We also wanted to talk about Build America, Buy America requirements. So certain infrastructure projects are subject to the Build America, Buy America provisions. School buses are not subject to this requirement, but electric chargers and supporting equipment are subject to the Build America, Buy America requirement. I also wanted to highlight EPA is working with national electrical utility companies to support school districts through a utility engagement pledge that includes facilitating communication between electrical providers and school districts, providing technical support and assistance, and increasing funding and deployment. EPA is also working with the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation. The Joint Office can provide applicants and selectees with support on some of the following topics, like analyzing charging infrastructure needs, analyzing energy needs and grid impact, conducting a route analysis as well as planning routes, and helping you with training and workforce development. Their helpline email is down below at cleanschoolbusta@nrel.gov. So for next steps, how to apply, we definitely recommend visiting the Clean School Bus website and looking through all the different tools and resources, registering your organization with sam.gov if you haven't already, and completing your application by the due date, which is January 31st, 2024 at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And so like I mentioned on the other slide, there are some supplemental documents this year, such as the School Board Awareness Certification, School District Approval Certification for third-party applicants, and Utility Partnership Agreement for zero-emission school buses. And these are all forms to make sure that your school boards, your third-party dealers, as well as your school districts and your electrical providers are aware of the rebate application and questions or budget changes coming. And then some important dates to remember, the rebate program opened back in September 2023. EPA has been hosting a variety of webinars on the Clean School Bus program, all posted on our website. January 10th is the final date to submit questions, and January 31st is the application deadline. EPA anticipates notifying selection of awards in April 2024, with payment request forms and purchase orders submitted throughout the summer and fall. And again, as a really quick summary, applications must be submitted to EPA no later than January 31st, 2024 at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. EPA encourages school districts to consider which competition structure best suits your needs. Again, to reiterate, this is a rebate program. EPA anticipates opening another grant program next year. And definitely check out our resources at EPA Clean School Bus website, as well as the Joint Office and Clean School Bus helplines here, which is my last slide, and that is just our contact information. Emily Sapio, who also works on the Clean School Bus program, my email, our helpline, and the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney, for that wonderful overview of the rebate program, how to go about applying, some best practices, and some just helpful tips. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to as many as we can during our Q&A session later on. Now, I'm happy to bring on Claire Alford, the Eastern Regional Manager for Market Development at Highland Electric Fleets. Thank you for being here, Claire.
Thanks, Max. I'm happy to be here, especially with all these great panelists. This is my first EPA webinar that I will be on for the day out of 3. So I'm excited that a lot of great groups like Electrification Coalition and others are hosting these sort of events. It's really great. So like Max said, I'm the Eastern Regional Manager on the market development team at Highland Electric Fleets. I've been at Highland for about 2 years and come out of the electric vehicle advocacy space. So it's nice to come out of the advocacy space focusing on EVs and now just focus on electric school buses. It's a pretty easy case to make. Let's see, let me get a hold of the hang of the slide clicker. So I won't spend too much time on this slide, and there are a few slides that I'll kind of glaze over. I think we're planning on sending the slides out later, so all this information will be in there. I also have to hop early, so I will not be on the Q&A, but before I leave, I'll put my email in the chat in case there's any follow-up questions that you have to ask. So what you see here, electric school bus FAQs, I'm sure everybody on this call gets these questions multiple times a day. So again, you know, the range is increasing with every iteration of electric school buses. It only takes around 3 hours to fully charge with the DC fast charger. A lot of the buses that we operate in school districts don't ever go to 0. So it's usually just top up charges. So you don't even need to worry about charging it from 0 to 100%. 97% fewer parts. Which just means a lot less maintenance, which I think is really exciting. And then the obvious, which I know Anne talked about, but the emissions reductions and safer air to breathe for our kids. So all of this, it's, you know, I think the question is, okay, so why aren't people electrifying at a faster pace? And that's where Highland comes in. We were founded in 2019, we're still relatively young. Our CEO, Duncan McIntyre, kind of saw all of these great things and was wondering why folks weren't transitioning. So now we are active in over 30 states and also Canada. We've secured over $60 million in grants and incentives for our customers. We have the largest electric school bus project in North America. That's in Montgomery County, Maryland. So I'm based in DC, Montgomery County, right in my backyard, and take folks out there all the time to see the depots there. It's really awesome to see all of the chargers and all of the buses plugged in. And currently we have over 500 electric school buses under contract. On this slide, you can kind of see how our projects are dispersed. We really started out in Montgomery County in Maryland in the Region 3 area, and we have spread west. So all of the 500 plus buses you'll see are represented by these yellow dots. And I think it's important to say over 5 are in rural or underserved communities, which I think is important. There's obviously an emphasis placed on that in the EPA's Clean School Bus Program and a lot of other state incentive programs. So we want to make sure that we're supporting those efforts. Just really quickly about what Highland actually does. So we provide fleet electrification as a service or energy as a service. It's very similar to a model that was used kind of at the advent of solar, for those that are familiar. So we don't manufacture any buses, but we work with Thomas, with Bluebird, with IC. They're all great, amazing partners. And we help a school district procure the buses, procure the charging infrastructure, get it all installed with their local utility. We train the maintenance workers and the school bus drivers so that we're not displacing any jobs. And then we make sure that the buses are charged when they need to be over the lifetime of our contract. So the way that we offer all of this for a price that's budget neutral or offers savings, especially over the long term. The way that we do that is by stacking a bunch of different savings. There's the obvious ones, which are maintenance costs, fuel costs, but a big part of what we do is secure grants and incentive funding for school districts, and that helps really bring down our price. So obviously right now, EPA Clean School Bus is top of mind. We're seeing a lot of state incentive programs come out. Maryland's got a big one coming out. New York just announced a really big program. So we basically work with the school district to fill out the application and to apply. Sometimes we apply on behalf of, sometimes we just help a school district apply. It depends on the details of the grant. But all of those are really important because, again, they just kind of drive that price down and close that cost delta right now, which is a big issue for school districts. I will skip over these EPA slides because Sydney obviously has much more detailed ones and knows the information better than anyone here. And I'll just skip to this. So this is a Highland specific slide about us supporting EPA, but I think there are a lot of folks that are doing what Highland does as well, and a lot of great groups out there like Electrification Coalition and WRI that are willing to help school districts through the application process. This round that we're in now is much simpler than the last round of funding, which was a grant round. That was a pretty intensive application. This one, not so much. But I think just across the board, as we continue and other rounds are released, I think it's super important for school districts to be able to partner with other companies, especially smaller school districts, rural school districts. They just may not have the bandwidth. And if nothing else, it's added bandwidth. So we applied with a bunch of schools in round 1 and round 2. All of our round 1 schools are successfully implementing their buses. My favorite one, the most exciting, is in Baltimore City. We're helping them implement 25 buses that they received from round 1. And we can really just help with timeline transparency, making sure that school districts meet all of the goals that they need to report on once they receive an award, help through the application process, ease that. Our grants team kind of looks at the application when it comes out, simplifies it, and then that's what we pass on to the school district. So a lot of different benefits. Like I said, I will not be here for the Q&A, but I'll drop my email in the chat. Please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to talk anything EPA or electric school buses. But with that, I will end. Thank you all.
Thank you, Claire, for the fantastic presentation on all the great work Highland is doing to drive school bus electrification and engage with school districts across North America. Now, I would like to introduce Adam Birdsong, Program Manager at Dominion Energy's Virginia Electrification Team, the nation's largest utility-led electric school bus program. Thank you for being here, Adam.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Max. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for giving me the platform to talk about Dominion Energy and our electric school bus program and how to engage with your local utility. So who is Dominion Energy? Dominion is a regulated investor-owned utility in North Carolina and Virginia. We currently serve about 2.7 million electric customers. Our infrastructure consists of about 67,000 miles of wire, which is 6,800 miles of transmission lines, 60,000 miles of distribution lines, 400 substations. Additionally, we serve our customers with a balanced, diverse fuel mix, which includes nuclear, natural gas, solar, and soon to be offshore wind. Dominion has a company goal of being carbon neutral by 2045. So to meet that goal, we'll be bringing on additional renewable resources. So why are we here today? Dominion takes a lot of pride in our electric school bus initiatives. We're not only committed to converting our own fleet to electric, but also helping our customers do so as well. Dominion has a dedicated electrification team, which is working to create programs to help school districts overcome some of the financial and technical hurdles of electric school bus adoption. Back in 2020, we tried to stimulate the industry, the electric school bus industry. We allocated 50 electric school buses to 15 school districts across our service territory in Virginia. We paid the delta between the diesel and electric. We installed all the DC fast charging infrastructure to support those buses. We paid for the 15-year warranty. This was a very significant capital investment. So in return, through the participation agreement with those 15 school districts, we're able to utilize the buses from vehicle to grid. We take the energy on the bus and put it back on the grid during times when the grid needs it the most, especially during the summertime. And we take ownership of the batteries at the end of the 15-year agreement with the school district. So at the end of 15 years, the school district will scrap the bus and we'll take the battery and put them somewhere like a substation or in a building and give it a second life. Those 50 buses hit the roads. School districts were very excited. We offered 50, but we had 300 requested, so there was an appetite in Virginia. So as we were trying to grow the program, the DEQ in Virginia used $19.2 million of Volkswagen settlement money to go toward electric school buses. The DEQ awarded 73 buses, but they didn't really have a whole lot of money that went toward charging infrastructure. So Dominion said, hey, if you get the buses from the DEQ, then we'll install the charging infrastructure to support those buses. In exchange for that investment, we again utilize the buses for vehicle to grid during the summertime, and we'll take ownership of that battery at the end of 15 years. So since then, there have been some other opportunities, the American Rescue Plan and the IIJA. Dominion now supports over 130 electric school buses across our service territory in Virginia. But this is only the beginning. 130 buses compared to 13,000 buses in our service territory, which operate off of diesel fuel today, and 17,000 buses across the state of Virginia. To help get those numbers up, we need partners. We need the federal government, state legislators, entities like the EPA, WRI, the Electrification Coalition, our good friends over at Sunny Merriman, and the local school districts. This is a big initiative of Dominion. Our goal is to protect the health of our children, drive bus costs down, improve technology, and support the grid. So as a school district, what is your role and how do you engage with the utility? There are a few things you need to do before engaging the utility. The first is you need to determine what type of charger, what size charger, how many chargers, and the location. You can work with your bus dealer, your facilities folks, and the charging manufacturers to come up with that information. You will then develop an electronic site plan with a meter location. You'll complete a load letter and have it signed by a licensed electrician. This load letter gives the utility a snapshot of how much energy you're going to need, and then we can design our infrastructure to support that need. You would develop an electric riser diagram, which I'll show you here in a second. You will gather property ownership information. If you have to add a new service, that may require setting a new transformer, and if we have to bring in service from outside of your property, we'll need to know whose property that service will be crossing so we can get easements. And if you're providing a switchgear, you need to provide a drawing number. All utilities have approved switchgears that you can use. And so we'll need that drawing information to validate whether or not that switchgear is approved by the utility. Once you have all this information, you contact your utility. You can do that through your key account manager, through their online portal, or their 1-800 number. From there, you'll schedule a site visit. You'll meet with an engineer or project designer. You'll go out into the field. You'll walk the site. You'll show the designer where this infrastructure is going to go. You'll then execute and return all agreements that are associated with your project. These can be underground agreements. These could be easements, etc. If there's a payment required from the utility side of work that needs to be done, you submit your payment then. You will then ensure that your site is the final grade. So that means that all your dirt mounds are level and the utility can come in and do their work. If there are any private utilities such as fiber, sewer, water, those have to be marked by the property owner. So the school district, you'll get with your facilities person to mark those facilities. And if the customer is required, depending on where you are and the requirements of the utility, sometimes the customer has to put their own conduit in. So make sure that's done before the utility comes out there. Once you've done all this, the final steps to energize your site, you make sure that all the metering equipment is installed to utility standards. You then get your electrical inspection completed by the utility and by the locality. And then the Dominion or the utility crew will come out and visually evaluate the site to make sure that everything's been completed to their standards. This is a lot of work that transpires to get your chargers installed. So start early. I cannot reiterate enough, start early. There's a lot of supply chain issues out there that can definitely slow down a project. So start early. Here's a picture of the one-line diagram that I mentioned. It's a bit of an eye chart here, so don't really worry about the details in the graphic. But this one-line diagram provides the customer, the electrician, and the utility insight into what infrastructure you already have there today. It lets you know, is there capacity to add more breakers and more circuits? It helps you plan for future expansion. It helps the utility decide, what type of electrical distribution equipment needs to be installed. And it's also used for plans and permits. As I said earlier, start early, but second to that is be flexible. Large power upgrades may take time and they can be costly. It depends on your utility. Everybody has grand visions of having to convert their entire fleet, but it may be easier when you engage a utility to just get the power that you need today. 300 kVA transformer, 500 kVA transformers are a whole lot easier to come by than a 1,000 kVA transformer. So give them a snapshot of what you need today. You also, if we didn't need to install a transformer or a new service, you'll need to coordinate with the utility for a planned outage. So your school or your depot may require a planned outage to install this infrastructure. And most utilities can do this at night and on the weekends to minimize the disruption to your operations. So sometimes when the utility comes out and they install infrastructure, there may be a cost associated with. So you may need to get with your project designer to see if there's any sort of revenue credits that can offset those costs. So I mentioned earlier that tell the utility what you need, but as you're building your site out, as you're putting the conduit in the ground, you're setting the pads, try to build that infrastructure out for future growth. It's kind of a measure twice, cut once. We always build our bus sites out for 8 buses. So if you were to get 3 buses, 4 buses through the EPA, we will, or through the IIJA, we will install the infrastructure to support 8 buses. So we'll put put the conduit in the ground, we'll pour the pads, and then as your fleet expands, we can just set the equipment. So again, that minimizes the disruption to your facility. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Max. And if you have any questions, you can go to dominionenergy.com and search electric school buses, or you can contact us at electricschoolbuses@dominionenergy.com.
Thank you, Adam. As he said, working with your utilities are such a critical part of the process, and one that is important to involve early in the process of applying for the electric buses. As he said, supply chain issues and all multitude of reasons. We're now going to transition to a discussion with Mark Giles, Transportation Director for Wise County Public Schools in Southern Virginia, and Whitney Kopenko, EV Program Manager for Sunny Merriman, a leading bus dealer based in Virginia who has worked with Wise County on providing the electric buses. I will turn it over to Whitney to start to introduce Sunny Merriman.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you this morning. And again, as mentioned, with this panel of people, I have been fortunate over the last few years that our company has been in the electrification market to work with many of the panelists that are on today. And I can tell you, just to kind of start it off, that we say electric school buses and chargers, they are a team sport and they require all of these great minds coming together to make them successful. So glad to be here with you. We certainly want to answer your questions, so feel free. I'll do a little intro about Sunny Merriman and our experience with electric school buses so far. So I think I have our slides here. So as mentioned, Sunny Merriman is a Thomas Built Buses dealer in Virginia. So we service all of Virginia for Thomas Built Buses. Our company is about 55 plus years old at this point, and up until school bus electrification, we offered many of the traditional bus dealership services that you have come to expect from a bus company. Bus sales, service, parts, warranty, add-on equipment, your traditional services from a bus company. But we actually started on the electrification journey with one of our very first partners, Dominion Energy, back in 2019 and delivered our first electric school bus to Virginia in 2020. And since then, the support that we offer to school districts has changed a little bit. And we've added additional services that are crucial for customers being able to see a successful deployment of their electric school buses. So just give you an idea of what that looks like from a dealership standpoint. Funding program support. So looking at the IIJA, leaning into the EPA's Clean School Bus program, looking for other types of programs that can help our customers find the funds that they need to be able to advance their goals. So that's something that we offer. That's what we're kind of specifically talking about today in our partnership with Wise County and how we help them secure the rebate program, the first one. Of course, we also now offer infrastructure planning and equipment. So traditional bus dealer that used to only sell school buses, we actually offer a wide variety of different chargers now as well. And also offer support services for those to help with maintenance and troubleshooting and just being the conduit, if you will, between the customer and the OEM for the manufacturer or different support services. Another really important service that is with the traditional bus dealership, but specifically for electric, is training. You can't have an electric school bus, you can't have chargers without a robust training program. So our company offers training for service technicians, for drivers, and also first responders. That's kind of a new one that traditionally with diesel buses, it wasn't a thing, but as part of every new school bus deployment, we actually reach out to the community's first responding team just to let them know that these buses are now their community members and how to properly interact with them and the safety protocol needed for that. And then finally, another one, community and stakeholder engagement and education. We try to teach people how to love the bus and how to embrace the buses and how to have tough discussions with community members or stakeholders within their school division that, have questions about this new technology. And we try to play a role there, sharing our experience and customers' experience to try to put everyone's mind at ease, and, have those tough discussions about new technology and how we can all be comfortable with it. As I mentioned, we delivered our first electric school bus in Virginia back in 2020 in November. Since then, we have worked with 40 plus school divisions at this point to get their first Jouley electric school buses. By the end of the school year this year, there will be about 225 Jouley electric school buses in operation in Virginia, and we're very excited about that. And as I mentioned today, most recently, we worked with Mark and his team over at Wise County Public Schools on the 2022 EPA rebate program and successfully applied on their behalf, and now they are getting some new buses. So I will pass it over to Mark for his introduction.
Thank you, Whitney. We wouldn't be sitting here today without the help of Sunny Merriman and Whitney and her team. I've always been a proponent of the EV space. I believe it's the future of transportation. And of course, without the EPA's help and rebates such as the one we received, we would not be able to purchase electric buses with the budget we have in the small school division in Southwestern Virginia. So thanks for having us. The interest in EVs is something that's really not widespread here in the coalfields. But seeing it as the future of transportation, feel like it's in the best interest to get zero emissions around our kids. The safety of our kids is something that I believe in very strongly. The process that we went through was very seamless with the help of Sunny Merriman. Again, they did the majority of the work for us, and I'm very appreciative of Whitney and her team.
Thank you so much for you guys for being here. Very excited to have you. So I just wanted to start off by asking you to kind of just describe the relationship between Sunny Merriman and Wise County and kind of how it came to be, who reached out to who first, and maybe just some of the benefits of having a OEM and like Sunny Merriman to do the application for you and kind of do a lot of the legwork. So yeah, I'll turn it over to Mark to start.
Sunny Merriman actually reached out to us. We've always found that they've been very proactive in finding funding source to support their customers. And the relationship that we have with them has, I can't put it to words really. But when they applied on our behalf as a group, I believe that was one of the most beneficial steps that we made to receive funding.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you, and I'll turn it over to Whitney, do you kind of have any tips for other school districts that may be looking to do a similar partnership with a company in their region? As you know, this Region 3 is very large, all the way up from Pennsylvania down to Virginia, West Virginia. So I think that we have a lot of school districts that'd be really interested in having a partnership like this. So do you have any kind of high-level recommendations for them?
I would say, from state to state, I know we have several states represented on this call in the audience, that the dealership is different in every state, and the different support and services that they offer is going to differ. So just because it's something that we offer or that someone else offers doesn't necessarily mean that that dealer will. But you can still ask. A lot of what we offer today came about because customers needed help and said, this is what we need, this is where we're struggling. And we said, okay, we're going to come alongside you and offer this service. And, I personally know many dealers in Region 3 that, are not our company specific, that are good people and I'm sure would offer the same type of thing. But I think asking the question and saying, this is where we're struggling with, that you'll find that most school bus dealers will say, let me figure out how I can help you, whether it's offering the service to you or whether it's connecting you with another friend or partner that can help you with that. That's certainly been our experience. And like I said, that's how a lot of the services that we offer came to be, was by being asked and trying to fill that gap for them. But yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I also kind of wanted to hear, you said that you all at Sunny Merriman have worked with many school districts in Virginia and the region. Just kind of wanted to hear about some of the kind of challenges and, hurdles that you had to kind of have, in the initial processes of the, first rebate program, and just things you've been going through with other school districts, and maybe how you kind of overcame them, resolved them, or just kind of high level tips for, school districts looking to do it now.
Yeah, I'll kind of one of the first ones that we've come across are more of like a very specific kind of thing, but I actually find that a lot of school districts run into this. Is we all know that the EPA program and many of the IIJ programs really try to focus on allocating money to rural areas, high need areas, and that's great. But those are especially the areas that sometimes, need that additional help, and sometimes the utility upgrades aren't there. And so we have found that with a lot of school districts, the ones that are in more of the rural areas, so they work with usually smaller utilities, co-ops, that kind of thing, there are a lot of infrastructure upgrades that are required. And so we have seen that in a lot of those areas, what we try to advise customers on initially is, like Adam said, reaching out to utility as soon as possible and really trying to figure out where they're at with their infrastructure to see what upgrades are there. I would say from there, the other really important thing is just having a good understanding of your district's ownership and long-term plans of your facilities and your land. We have run into many school districts that when these programs open up, they say, oh yeah, we're gonna put the chargers at our bus depot, but then come to find out, perhaps the bus depot is owned by the county and not the school, or perhaps there are some long-term plans that might, we want to take a step back from putting in a lot of money at this location because down the road the school division is going to move, or things like that. So the infrastructure is really important to start with first. A lot of people naturally go to focusing on the bus. Okay, let me get my bus because it's the electric school bus program, and that's great, but the bus isn't going anywhere without the chargers. So Really honing in first on infrastructure is what we advise. Figure out about your land use, figure out long-term projects for that land to make sure it's going to make sense to put in this expensive infrastructure. Connect with your utility and just start having a discussion. Find a friend at your utility who is going to be there to just kind of come along the process with you and answer questions. Everyone knows at this point that, a lot of customers are not super familiar with, the utility lingo and just the overall dynamics of things. And so finding a friend at your utility is important. And then I would say, I think I saw where somebody had sent in a question about charging, and this has come up with a lot of our customers, especially in the rural areas, that it is expensive to make these infrastructure upgrades. And some of them, even with the support of the EPA funding or whatever funding source, some of that falls back on the customer to try to do. And what we have seen, especially in those kind of priority areas, we can sometimes mitigate the need for more costly upgrades initially by using managed charging. Look into managed charging. And if you can somehow limit the power need for your chargers by using charge management and staggering your charging so that you don't have to make all of these upgrades initially and you can crawl, walk, run into the whole process.
Thank you, Whitney. Yeah, no, I think those are some really useful suggestions and tips when getting started on this process. I think that many school districts definitely feel overwhelmed when going into this. Like you said, some of those infrastructure upgrades can be really costly and timely. And so I think that these are really helpful moving forward. I wanted to turn over to Mark to kind of ask you about the charging infrastructure that you have for your school and your electric buses, what it looks like, and any advice you might have for transportation directors or fleet managers looking to expand or get some electric school buses in their district.
Contacting the local power company was very important, as Adam mentioned earlier, for us, making sure we had the power needed for the locations that we had picked out for these buses. Initially we park buses, we're creatures of habit. We usually park buses in the same spots. Thinking of electrifying our fleet has had us make some changes in where we're staging our buses. We had to stage them where we had power, where we had location 2 power. Also, with the first round of funding that we received, we were hoping for future, endeavors into more funding being available. So what we tried to do is we tried to future-proof that and tried to add spaces for additional buses in the future if funding were available. I think that's a big thing, trying to future-proof your fleet when picking a side.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think that's super important. One other question I just wanted to quickly ask you, I know we are running out of time for this great discussion, was that the EPA in this round has definitely been encouraging school districts to have a lot of communication with their school board and some of the higher ups in the administration. So I just wanted to ask if you had any delays with your school board approvals or district kind of budgetary concerns or concerns from kind of higher up in the administration when you were going through this process, and maybe if you did, like how you kind of put them at ease and explained like how great this will be for the district.
Budgetary concerns are always important, especially to small rural divisions such as ours. Also, getting buy-in from the board is very important. But trying to tie those two together is actually what led us to applying. If we can save money in any manner, that's looked at highly. If we can spend more money on kids, that's a good thing. And that combination of getting the buy-in with our board, with of course the budgetary concerns that we have every year, that actually played hand in hand into us being able to apply for the rebates.
Perfect. Thank you so much both for this very insightful discussion. We are now going to move all of our over to our all speaker Q&A session. So I would like to welcome back Sydney and Adam, in addition to Philip Burgoyne Allen from the World Resources Institute Electric School Bus Initiative, who will be giving his presentation just after this Q&A session. So I wanted to start out with just if Philip, if you had any kind of, high level suggestions for school districts in terms of applying for this, just because you haven't gotten a chance to kind of weigh in on that and pose that to a lot of our other speakers so far.
Sure, and I'll cover some in my slides after the Q&A, but I think the biggest recommendation we have is just to start early. Applications for this round of rebates are due January 31st at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So don't forget that it's not 11:59. It's during the day. But the sooner you start talking to your school board, the sooner you start talking to your utility, the sooner you dig into some of the specific requirements for the program, the better your experience is going to be. And so, I think across the board, we recommend to get started right away so that you're not trying to jump through these hoops with only a few days left and stressing yourself out. So I would say start early.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and I just wanted to turn over to kind of ask about the Justice 40 initiative. I know that this is something that Sydney discussed and the EPA is committed to. So I just wanted to kind of pose to everyone just kind of what role do we think that electric school buses and this program can play in the greater conversation around environmental justice and kind of fair green transportation for the future. I'll start with Sydney, and then we can kind of go around to anyone else that wants to weigh in.
Thanks, Max. So I believe Emily answered part of that question in the chat too. So just want to highlight that Clean School Bus program is very focused on the Justice 40 initiative, and therefore it's listed in our Q&A doc, which we can provide a link to as well, some frequently asked questions. But EPA intends to consider several factors and has taken a lot of feedback over the past year. So for this round, 60% of the total funding of the 2023 rebates will be for these prioritized school districts. But then also wanted to remind non-prioritized school districts that you can still apply as long as you're eligible, because that remaining 40% will be for non-prioritized this time after some feedback we've received.
Perfect. Yeah, did anyone else have any kind of thoughts on that they wanted to weigh in on?
Yeah, I'll jump in on the just speaking of the priority districts. One thing to note as well is that there is a self-certification option. So that's that was not part of the 2022 rebate, or they've expanded it since the 2022 rebates, but it was part of the grant program from CSPP that happened earlier this year. So as Sydney knows as well, EPA has a list of all the priority districts, but they also have the detailed list on the CSPP rebates webpage that shows all the districts who are eligible to self-certify. So that, if you're not in the Census Bureau's SIPE database, you're eligible to self-certify, and this is the new part for large districts. So, if you're a big county-wide district, maybe you have a more affluent part of the district, a less affluent part of the district. And so you can, if you have 45 or more schools or 35,000 or more students, you can self-certify your whole district or just a subset of schools, depending on which schools receive Title I. So I want to highlight that as well, that just because you're not listed as a priority district now, you might be able to still get priority status for your application.
Perfect. Thank you, Philip. I did want to discuss kind of the implementation of electric school buses in rural areas. I know this is something that Whitney was discussing, and you all have worked on a lot over at Sunny Merriman. So I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on just, barriers to implementation of electric school buses in rural areas, maybe some of like what you've seen at some of these school districts and how you've kind of overcome those barriers.
Yeah, I'll reiterate the first one, which is just that we find that in the rural areas that have, again, smaller utilities usually and co-ops, that there are usually more infrastructure upgrades that have to happen. And of course, that's a barrier because of timing. It's also a barrier because of funding, because a lot of times some of those things are not covered by funding programs, we look to other utilities like Dominion Energy that are helping customers kind of combat those barriers. And that's one thing that we've really tried to lean into, to have other utilities step up to the plate like Dominion has and try to support their customers with making some of those upgrades or just working with them on how we can overcome that challenge. We've also looked into, again, the managed charging for some of those districts to try to cut back on the extensive upgrades that would allow them to either use the existing power or to make, again, a smaller upgrade. Another thing that we've seen outside of the infrastructure aspect in rural localities that can, especially at rural and high priority or high need localities, that can be a barrier is lack of resources. We talk a lot about funding resources, which is certainly, that's an obvious barrier that most every school district faces. But then specifically the people resources and the time resources, usually in rural and high need districts, they're working with a smaller staff. They're stretched a little bit more thin, and so they don't necessarily have the champions for electrification that are needed to see the program to success, which is, one reason, and Sydney, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but in the recent Clean School Bus program, we saw where there was the opportunity to perhaps apply for some funding for workforce development and for some additional resources there, as well as we've seen that as an add-on in other programs that is certainly a benefit to school districts and something to look into. If they do lack the resources, because again, there are some learning curves that have to be overcome. There are just, it takes a little bit more to implement an electric school bus versus what we've all been used to as a diesel bus. So those people resources are key.
Thank you, Whitney. Yeah, no, I think that, when we're talking about electrification, we're talking about electrification for all. So we definitely need to make sure that we're also looking at the rural areas and not making sure they don't feel left behind in the future of transportation. Next, I kind of wanted to discuss how we can see the role of electric school buses playing in emergency preparedness in the future. I know that, Whitney, you had said that you all have, been working and training more with emergency responders as well. But yeah, wanted to turn this over to anyone that would like to talk. Philip, I know that you all as, World Resources Institute do a lot of work around this. So we'll start with you.
Sure. So, I think, obviously electric school buses, since you're dealing with a battery instead of an internal combustion engine, it's a little bit different. So, overall, we always recommend coordination with everyone who will be involved. So that includes, emergency personnel, some of the issues you might be needing to prepare for with an electric bus might be a little bit different than with an internal combustion engine bus. And so coordinating with emergency personnel is obviously something we recommend, but it is something that's happening all over the place. So it's not a new issue. There are lots of electric vehicles coming to the roads, electric school buses and light duty vehicles, other vehicles. So this isn't something new, but and another piece on emergency preparedness where electric school buses can really shine is, in emergency situations. So, whether or not you can swing this with your rebate funding is a different conversation. But if you have bidirectional charging, you can have a vehicle to building option where, say your gymnasium or your cafeteria is an emergency response center in case of an extended power outage. You can actually draw on the battery in your bus to power, just that load that's powering the gymnasium and things like that. So, when we think longer term about emergency preparedness, there's a lot of advantages that having that big battery inside your electric school bus can help, especially in longer power outages. And as we electrify more and more elements of what we use every day, it's going to be a critical issue.
Thanks, Philip. Yeah, I actually wanted to turn this over to Adam to just kind of ask about Dominion Energy's interest in work into bidirectional charging and kind of vehicle to everything or vehicle to grid, and just kind of different uses for electric school buses in that manner.
Yeah, the opportunities around vehicle to grid are really contingent on where you are in the country. Certain areas have better incentives for the customer or the end user to discharge the bus back onto the grid. Our program is not, our area in the PJM market is not extremely lucrative right now for a school district to discharge the buses, but it is a benefit for the utility to discharge the buses. So again, hot summer day, everybody comes home from work, cranks up their air condition, and it really puts a stress on our distribution system. So if we can hit a button and discharge those buses back onto the grid, it'll relieve some of the stress on the system. So that's why it's a value to the utility. We're working with other entities to study vehicle to grid for other opportunities. You mentioned V to X, V to B. We're looking at maybe being able to energize a bus depot, or again, like you said, a portion of a school. So there are lots of opportunities. There's a lot of people working hard in the background to take advantage of those opportunities. So expect more to come in the future.
Great, thanks. I wanted to actually turn it over to Whitney to just see if, have you all had any experiences with your school district with bidirectional charging? Has anyone been curious about it? And just kind of how you see fitting into the future of school bus electrification.
Yeah, so I would coincidentally, Dominion Energy is really what catapulted school bus electrification in Virginia. So back in 2020, those first buses delivered, the first 50 electric school buses, were part of Dominion Energy's electric school bus program, where they offered funding support to school districts to help purchase these buses, as well as V2G chargers, to be able to use them in their V2G program. So of our 225 electric school buses that'll be in operation by the end of the school year, about 60% of them, I would say, perhaps even a little bit more, are part of Dominion Energy's program that can utilize those buses to put energy back onto the grid. And then I think, as Adam mentioned in his presentation as well, that also provides school districts with a responsible way to dispose of their battery, not even dispose of it, but actually deploy it into a second life application at the end of the life cycle of the bus. So it's been a huge contributing factor to the growth of electrification in Virginia, because of the funding support and overall interest that really sparked within the state.
Great, thank you. I wanted to also kind of discuss, we have this really amazing EPA program, but we have seen some states like, Colorado and even Pennsylvania is looking at creating a piece of legislation around this right now, but just the kind of maybe the state's role in also providing some funding or some aid in terms of moving forward electric transportation for our students. So does anyone have any kind of what they'd like to see from the state? Would they like to see a state program, and just like how that might look in Region 3 and benefit the region?
I can say,
please
go for it, Phil.
Okay, I'll jump in first. I'll say, from WRI's perspective, technical assistance is something we want to see as part of any funding program. Obviously, just having funding support for the buses and especially charging infrastructure is very helpful for districts, but we also see school districts, struggling to wrap their heads around electrification. We just talked about, vehicle to grid. You can make electrification as complicated as you want. There is always something else you can try. So helping school districts who maybe are just beginning stages and are trying to figure out, do we want level 2? Do we want DC fast charging? Is this going to work for our route? So having that technical assistance built in where states can help their districts, make these decisions and not necessarily have, it's great that, Adam is here, Whitney's here, who have been helping districts. We've been helping districts, but, the more folks that are coming to the table to support school districts making decisions, especially with funding, that can really help down the road to make sure you're getting the most out of your state funds.
Yeah, and I'll just chime into that to say we have been fortunate in Virginia that some of the Volkswagen mitigation funds that were allocated to Virginia were actually used to fund 2 rounds of electric school bus funding, and did bring many buses to Virginia through that program. And in addition to that, we've seen in the last couple of years, it's not quite come into real life application yet, but we've seen some of our state legislature trying to set up a plan and a funding source to support school districts with the funding aspect, as Phil mentioned, for that. There's been some groundwork laid for that. It's not fully matured yet, but we are glad to see the wheels of legislation turning to help school districts with that. And in the interim, to Phil's point as well, that we see many of our state administration and just, staff that actually reach out to school districts and try to offer some of that technical support. We actually have a few friends, I say friends, we're all partners and whatnot here, but the Department of Environmental Quality within Virginia has several people that actually will reach out to school districts and try to support them with the federal initiatives as well. So we see that at least a little bit here in Virginia, and I hope that spreads across the Region 3.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to next take a question from the audience. And I believe this is directed at you, Adam. And they asked, is there a method for the utility to set the rate of charging, such as after having discharged the buses to aid the grid? Can you choose to charge the buses at a lower rate and increase it as the load on the system decreases?
Yeah, so we typically don't manage the charging. The school districts would. There are rates out there that utility rates out there that incentivize customers to charge off peak time. So if your bus on a DC fast charger charges in 3 hours, you don't care most times the school districts don't care what 3 hours those buses charge, as long as they're charged and ready to go in the morning. So if you start charging at midnight when electricity is cheaper, then that's ideal use of rate making. But every utility is different. Every rate's a little bit different. So get with your utility before and see what options are out there.
Great. Thank you, Adam. I wanted to wrap up our Q&A session with just asking everyone to just kind of say, what can someone do to go advocate in their community for electric school buses if they don't already have them or want more of them and want to see a more robust program? We'll start with Adam.
I've mentioned this a few times today. Engage with your utility. As a utility, we love to interact. We love to hear from our customers. We love to see, we love to hear your challenges, and we look for ways and opportunities to help you overcome those challenges. So whether we create a new rate or a new program or some sort of incentive, we love engaging with our customers. So reach out often, and hopefully we'll get you to the finish line.
Turn it over to Whitney.
I think my one round piece of advice would be to, I think everybody on this call wants to see that the transportation department gets to focus on its primary responsibility of getting our kids to and from school responsibly and in a safe way every day. And so kudos to you for wanting to go for an electric school bus. And I encourage you to find your friend, find your partners that can help you really dive through this process and let them kind of help you, and find those people that can do this research for you, that can answer these questions and support you so you can focus on your primary responsibility of getting kids to school safely, because that's a big task.
I'll turn it over to Mark.
One thing that we've had, of course, fear of the unknown. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts about how the electric school bus will perform. When we got our first 2 units last year, we had a lot of those same questions. We actually put those in the hands of drivers that were teachers and coaches that were not very pleased that they were getting an electric school bus with the perceptions that they had going into it. Now those people have changed their tune drastically. And, I believe their testimonies to other drivers about having other drivers want to have the opportunity to drive these buses has helped us tremendously. These guys, if we have to take their bus off their route, they are devastated. but just a testimony of how much they enjoy their electric buses and how much the kids enjoy their electric buses has been phenomenal.
Over to Phil.
Yeah, for folks in the community, I think reaching out to your school district, letting them know that you want electric school buses. They're, obviously it reduces carbon emissions, but it also reduces pollution that harms students, physical development, their cognitive development, can lead to increased asthma rates, increased hospital rates for those who already have asthma. So we know that, there's a lot of downsides that come with diesel school buses. But at the same time, it's hard to stay on top of all these different funding programs, state and federal utility programs, all these different things. So the more school districts are hearing from their community and getting help from their community, pointing them in the right direction, the better an experience they're going to have as they try to move forward with electric school buses.
Perfect, thanks. And last, over to Sydney.
Yeah, a lot of what has been said already, I would say too, but also just supporting and promoting the program, checking out all the resources online, and then also making sure you talk with your superintendents, your transportation managers, your bus drivers, school boards, making sure everyone's on the same page just makes the process smoother and gets more people interested.
All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for such a wonderful and insightful conversation and for being here today. It's really, truly been a pleasure. I'm now going to turn it over to Phil Burgoyne-Allen for his presentation. So thank you for being here, and surely not last, but truly not least.
Great, thank you, Max. I think my slides are up now, so I will jump in. I'm Philip Burgoyne-Allen. I'm an associate on the Electric School Bus Initiative at the World Resources Institute, WRI. WRI is a global research organization with over 1,400 experts working across 60 countries. So, we do a lot of work in the US, but we also draw on international expertise as well. So the Electric School Bus Initiative specifically, our aim is to electrify the entire US fleet by 2030. That's a very aggressive goal. We might not get there, but we're going to push as hard as we can to, accelerate the number of school districts who are bringing electric buses to their fleet, working together, across communities, school districts, utilities, policymakers, all the people involved in making this transition possible. And then lastly, ensuring that it is an equitable transition, because, we don't want to recreate patterns of technology adoption where those who need it the most might have it the least. And so ensuring that we do this equitably is also top of mind for us. So I want to just briefly give a little bit of a landscape of electric school buses in EPA Region 3 right now. So this information comes from our data dashboard, where we're tracking as best as we can electric school bus adoption nationally. So I've pulled out the Region 3 states here. There are 859 total electric school buses committed in school districts in Region 3. Nearly 300 of those are delivered or operating to the best of our knowledge. You can see that most of those are in Virginia and Maryland right now. So, kudos to those two states who are really leading the way here. But that doesn't mean these other states aren't trying as well. So on this next slide here, I have specifically Clean School Bus Program awardees in EPA Region 3. Note that this is just from the 2022 rebate. So for those of you who applied for the 2023 grants under the Clean School Bus Program, that's great. But we are still waiting on announcements of those awards. So hopefully we'll get to update these numbers with more districts in Region 3, adding many more buses. But as you can see here, Virginia and Pennsylvania have been the leaders on getting buses from the Clean School Bus Program and adding those to their fleet. So, most of these buses are still on their way, but we look forward to, continuing to update our numbers and updating the data as we learn about more and more districts that are getting these buses added to their fleet. So next, just want to quickly cover some barriers to successful electric school bus deployment that we've seen. Funding gaps, which have come up on this call. Even if you need to fill $10,000 or $20,000 of additional funding you need for infrastructure that, above and beyond what you're getting from CSBP, that can be really challenging for a district to manage with their budget. Similarly, limited staff capacity just makes everything more challenging because you have fewer hands doing more work trying to manage this transition. Charging infrastructure is another place where we see a lot of struggles with school districts. Really just wrapping their heads around what they might need and what is going to best serve whatever their transportation operation is designed for. So, this came up when we were talking about demand charges and utility rates. If you're going to fast charge or you're going to use a slower level 2 charger or different options, different vendors that come into the mix with charging infrastructure, just making sure that, it can be challenging for school districts to really understand everything involved there. And then, I'll move through here quickly, but project delays, obviously, if you're waiting on a transformer or you're waiting on if your bus delivery gets delayed, these are all things that can move your project off track. And then lastly, district-wide alignment. So, making sure your school board, your utility, all the departments in your district, all the folks who need to come to the table for this transition, whether you want to transition your full fleet or just try out, 3 or 5 or 10 electric school buses, you need to make sure you have that alignment. But as I mentioned, first off, if you start early and you really put your mind towards coordinating across all the different folks involved, you can really help mitigate these barriers with proper planning. So that takes me into some lessons learned from previous rounds of the Clean School Bus program. First and foremost, verify that you have access to an active SAM.gov account. There's technical support available if you have issues with that, but that's kind of step one that we recommend for everyone. Coordinating across school district departments, as I mentioned, making sure everyone is on the same page. Prioritize your planning for charging infrastructure and be strategic about what you might want to include there. Engaging your school board and electric utility, and centering equity in your community engagement and your ESB deployment. Again, start early, take these steps as soon as you can. It's going to really pay dividends down the road when you have a better plan of action if you get this funding. So now just quickly, what's new for the 2023 rebates? The applications are due January 31st at 4 p.m. The funding level has come down a little bit from past rounds to $345,000 max, but there is $20,000 in additional per bus funds available if you want to pursue wheelchair lifts, which is new for this round. So we think that's great to see. I mentioned self-certification already. Make sure you check out whether you qualify for self-certification for priority status. The 2 new required forms, we've talked some about this too, but you need confirmation from your school board and you need confirmation from your utility that they are, they are aware and ready for you to apply for these. So make sure you check out those new forms. Again, this is all on EPA's website, so I won't dwell on this. And then lastly, tax credits. So this is new. There are new provisions from the Inflation Reduction Act that make not tax-exempt entities eligible for some of these tax credits that can help with these, electrification and other clean energy investments. The first thing we hear is that school districts say they're not eligible, but you are. This is a new provision that makes you eligible for these tax credits. I don't have time to dig into them here, but talk to your school board, talk to your budget office, your finance office, whoever is helping with procurement and funding, because if you have an electric school bus that's been delivered in 2023, even if it's not a new one you're going to be purchasing, you're eligible because this went into effect December 31st of 2022. So if you have buses coming or they already arrived this year, look into these tax credits because it's going to help your budget a bit more. And then lastly here, I think someone from the Electrification Coalition will be able to drop a link in the chat to our office hours, but we have a lot of resources on our website. I list some of them here that can help on, general things, CSBP, funding, procurement, equity, all the different topics you're interested in. We have resources for those. So, the first thing we recommend is check out our office hours. You can schedule time with our staff, and we can help point you to our other resources that might be helpful, answer your specific questions. But anytime you want to go to our website or social media channels, I list them here, but we're always pushing out our resources. We're always working on something new. So please reach out and we're always happy to help. And I will turn it back over to you, Max.
Thank you. I'm actually going to turn it over to Sydney to close this out. Thank you.
Thanks, Max. So just before closing the webinar, we wanted to say thank you to all the speakers. Everyone had great information and perspectives about their experiences transitioning to clean school buses, as well as working with their utility companies. And a huge thank you to Electrification Coalition for all their help coordinating and hosting this event. And just as a final reminder, like it's been mentioned a lot, the rebate program closes January 31st at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure your application is submitted and please register your SAM.gov if you haven't already. And then lastly, just to summarize, again, the EPA Bipartisan Infrastructure Law is a 5-year program that's now in its 3rd cycle. This program is providing $5 billion over the life of the program, but there's no guarantee it will be renewed under future funding. So we encourage all interested school districts to take advantage of the opportunity while it's available. And it's great to have this program focused on localized pollution reduction efforts that increase the protection of school children's health. And I believe that's all, so thank you again, unless there's anything else from the chat before ending. But otherwise, I think we're good. Thank you all for attending. And then if you have any questions, definitely reach out to all the emails that's been provided, or we can provide you the helplines. And I believe that's it. Thank you.